Hey, it's Matt Malone, and with our Fresh Picked show, we like to bring you artists that you know and artists that you're getting to know. New music, again, literally as soon as it gets released, we try to get it out there for you to hear. And we're very lucky this week to be able to share with you a new artist, one that you are getting to know, and one that is a little bit north of us. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Parker Graye. How are you, Parker?
Super great. Super great. Thanks so much for having me. This is
awesome. Absolutely. First of all, I love your personality. This is, our first time actually being able to talk a little bit, but we've had a couple messages back and forth on Instagram, working out this interview. But on Instagram is really where your personality just kind of goes, and is so big with your personality. And I think it's great. I mean, you seem very down to earth. You seem very chill. So I've got to know, besides doing the music kind of thing, with your personality, where do you feel like that shines the brightest? Like what situations? I know it's a hard question. I'm not gonna do the softball lob to you right away.
You just had that Hail Mary pass. I did. Last touchdown.
That's right. The rest of the questions are downhill from here. They're not gonna be any good. They're gonna be garbage.
I love people. I'm a people person, and I love getting to know people and understanding people's goals and their journeys, and relationship building is really big for me. I think that's really why I love co-writing, because you can learn so much about people in such an intimate, vulnerable setting. But from my life outside of being a singer-songwriter, I do public relations, and I'm also a CrossFit coach. So I get to see, people in different settings and different places in their life, in the world, and business, and it gives me the opportunity to kind of build some interesting relationships and get to know people. So I would say maybe people, relationship building. I'm a bit of a loudmouth, so I mean you always know that I'm here.
Well, and I think too, you're I don't want to say uncensored, but you're very, again, I use the word real and authentic, where you're not afraid to show your excitement. Or
yeah, you can definitely say uncensored, considering when I talked about an opportunity that I got recently, and my mom was like, "You have such a potty mouth." I'm like, don't care.
Love you, Mom.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the opportunities, and we're going to talk about the new single here in a second too, because I really want to touch on that because it's a great song. But the opportunities that you've had to where you are right now, what do you think is maybe the biggest thing that kind of pushed you to say, all right, I need to really pursue doing a music career and give it that real go?
Yeah, actually, that was it wasn't even really an opportunity. It was more of a song that kind of popped up. I'd been writing songs more in the pop scene for a long time. And I wrote a country song with two guys who are based in St. Louis. And that song was the catalyst for kind of this whole movement. And I mean, in terms of recently, for us, the Casey Clark Show is a countdown that occurs, and Casey's got his own shows that syndicate on multiple Canadian stations. I think that was kind of recently being named the next big thing, and featured in his weekly countdown was something where I was like, oh, okay, I think I'm starting to really, truly believe I have something very special here, and seeing other people believe in you is obviously very helpful. But there's been I've just been kind of very fortunate in certain situations, meeting certain people that have really kind of helped me turn the light on in terms of believing in myself and my music. And I think what I'm doing is a bit different than what everybody's doing. And it's not your typical country, but it's not pop. And I wanted to marry those two things with some really deep storytelling, be it from a very personal, vulnerable place, which is what a lot of what's coming out is very vulnerable and personal and based off personal experience that really threw me for a loop. But I also just really love telling stories and finding those avenues of where maybe it's not something I've experienced before, but it's something I can tap into that someone else has. So different change in genre, and then some awesome media opportunities. Shout out to a PR background.
Love it. All right. Well, you mentioned storytelling, and that's such an important thing, especially in country music. That is what's going to win every time, because the listener actually puts themselves into that story a lot of the times. Now, your song "Do Over." I want to just play a quick clip here for him. All right, if that's cool here.
Oh,
So I'll
go
play
for it.
this.
You moved on, but I still think of you.
Is it weird hearing yourself?
Maybe we
It's
can call
awful.
it a do-over.
Is it weird hearing yourself on there where you're just like, that's me? Like people are playing my song.
Honestly,
Like,
when I heard it on the Casey Clark show last weekend, I was like, I recorded it purposely because I was like, I need to see my reaction. And like everyone was like, did you fake that? I was like, no, man, I was crying. And like I said in my Instagram stories this week, like being on the radio seems like such, like, to people, they're like, oh, you're on the radio, but like it's so hard to get on the radio. Like it's so hard because you're competing with these top 40 artists who the radio station's got to hit their KPIs and get their spins up and keep that audience engaged. So featuring new artists is something that doesn't happen very often. And it's such an honor, and it feels like such an achievement to be featured amongst those people, and like to be considered as good or on the come up and like one of the next is like, oh man, it's all the feels.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good point too. A lot of people don't understand it, and it's especially difficult for Canadian artists. And we'll talk about that in a second as well too. But yeah, I mean, people are like, well, why don't you just play everybody? Well, it's because, as a listener, you have expectations to hear, Luke Combs and Luke Bryan and Jason Aldean. And, it's hard for us to remove one of those core artists and then put in somebody that nobody knows. The song has to be good. It has to be good. And for, James Barker Band and a lot of these other artists in Canada who've made a run, and I forgot what his name is now, Della Smith. Great. He's awesome. I mean, these guys are so good, and they're stars in Canada, big stars, but here in the US, it's still so hard to break through. So for you, is that something you see in your future then? And we'll get back to Do Over in a second too, but I've got so many different things running through my head right now. Do you see that as a potential for you to, come to the US and move, maybe even potentially move to Nashville? Or do you feel like in the day and age that we're at, that's not even necessary? You can do everything from where you're at?
So yes, obviously breaking out into the US, I think Canada is just smaller. Our reach is smaller. It's different. The type of music is different. Obviously, the US just has a bit more of more reach, and then also influence, I would say, over what kind of happens in the industry. And I mean, moving to Nashville is the goal. It's the goal. And I prefer being in rooms with people when I co-write. Obviously, everything we've been doing up until this point is via Zoom, and that's cool. Like I love it. I would rather be doing that than not at all. But there's something very magical about writing in Nashville. And there's an energy and the type of people you can associate yourself with and get in rooms with that you can't hear. And I know that a lot of Nashville writers prefer being in the room. And obviously we're in this weird space right now where that's not as easy, but it's a different world there. It's the Mecca, right? Like it makes me like my last trip, and I get so like, oh, like I just want to be there right now. Like I just want to hang out. I just want to be in the whole juicy goodness of what it is. But I mean, obviously I want to be a global artist. And in order to do that, you have to break in the US. It's part of it. So yes. Move to Nashville. Yes. Sign me up. If you're looking to adopt a Canadian, I'm willing to come. I will fill out the application right now.
There you go. Love that answer. All right. With your last trip to Nashville, what was maybe like the coolest thing that you got to do besides songwriting?
Well, we were tracking the songs that are coming out. So Do Over was tracked there. And I think honestly, like the authenticness of being in a Nashville studio, recording my first country songs, like that in of itself was just like, oh, holy moly. Like, this is super cool. This is exactly what I want. I felt really at home there. So I think there's something about that trip that was just very special. And I would probably just say being in a studio in Nashville with my team, like doing the work. That's the stuff. That's the good stuff.
I like it. Well, let's talk more about Do Over. And The song, awesome. Vocals are great. I love the arrangement is just, it's beautiful. And I want to know, there's got to be a story behind it. You've kind of already alluded to it. So
Yeah.
are you willing to tell us and share us the story?
Yes, absolutely. So before the story, for the story, I for years have always put lyrics on my Instagram stories, kind of as like an A/B test to figure out what poetry really resonates with people that are obviously following me on Instagram. And then the ones that had a bit more traction, or people were like sending crying emojis or like, I feel so many things, I would like kind of save them back and then take them into writing sessions and being like, I have this idea, good response, what could we work with? So in my previous pop life, I got connected with John Strandell and Logan Miller, who are out of St. Louis. And they were like, hey, we should write together sometime. And I was like, sure. Like, I'd never really touched a lot of work with country artists or, Nashville, St. Louis artists. So we wrote it was in November of 2017. And I'd been going in and out of a relationship with someone who, it was toxic. Like, looking back, it was very toxic, but I really believed in where it was going. And I really saw a future with him, and I wanted nothing more than just to like kind of hit a clean slate. Like, there'd been some weird things that had popped up that caused a bit of a rift in the relationship. And I just wanted a do-over. Like, I just wanted to hit replay and reset. And it was funny because the way that John was like, hey, can you send me that like do-over thing? I don't know what you were writing. So I sent them the screenshot, and he was like, can you explain this to me? I'm like, in the most childish form for me to explain this. It's like when you're a kid and you're playing hide and seek and somebody finds you too quickly and you're like, no, do over, do over, do over. I'm like, put that into an adult relationship scenario. And he was like, got it. Okay. And so then we started building kind of the story around it, involving like this relationship where there was so many bumps in the road and guardrails, and I wanted nothing more than just a do-over. So that's kind of how the song came to be. And that was the first country song I'd ever written. This is the first country song I'd ever written. And to have this be the debut single is like, it's so special. And it was hard, right? Because it's like, I'm a sad girl at heart. Like, I love sad songs. I love feeling. And so I was like, there's so much good music out there where it's like, women-led power anthems and like, you don't need no man and all of this stuff, right? And I'm like, I don't know if people are gonna feel this as hard as I'm feeling it. But so it's super rewarding to see that people are loving it and feeling it and being like, oh my goodness, like this really does put me in a place and take me back to like a certain time.
Do you feel like in a relationship that if you had those opportunities to do over or make do-overs happen, do you feel like that would change the outcome of the relationship?
Cool.
Even in your case specifically.
Boy, buckle up. No, we were destined to burn. Him and I were destined to burn. That was, yeah. It was, if it wasn't, that was, yeah, there was nothing that was going to save that. Like, looking at the whole, because that was early on. And it was just like dumpster fire, train wreck for like the next couple of years. Like, it was not good. But maybe I think that there are a lot of times that in relationships we get scared and we sabotage ourselves and we do stupid things and say stupid things to protect our own heart and avoid getting into a situation or an unfortunate situation like a past relationship. And in some circumstances, do I think so? Yeah. If we could read minds, do I think it would be better? Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if reading minds would be good either, because I know what happens in here, and it's not always good.
Okay, maybe.
All right. But I think it's just an interesting way to look at things. If you could make certain decisions and go back and do things different, obviously you might do things a little bit different, but in the end, if you're in the position where you're like, no matter what I would have done, if I would have done these things different, it still wouldn't have worked out. It still would have ended the same way.
Totally.
And that's a powerful thing.
Totally. And it's like, it's interesting now being able to look back on that situation and listen to this song and be like, oh man, that was so nice that you were that naive. Like,
yeah,
That's
You were not jaded at that point, right?
not at all. Not at all.
Oh, that's awesome. So now have you talked to this fella or in any time period or anything, or?
Yes, I have. Interestingly enough, the things that were supposed to happen, like me moving, have happened with another girl. And this song came out, and I think some of his people in his town were taunting him a little bit and like in their tractors, like kind of cranking the song. And and I was like, how does it feel to, because he randomly reached out and he's like, I was like, how does it feel to like, know that you have a song written about you? And he was like, oh, what? Like trying to play it off. I was like, okay, whatever.
Right.
I almost like, I'm now to the point though where I'm like, I don't want to give you that, like give him that gratification of like, whatever. But at the same time, it's also kind of like a Sam Hunt move of like, thanks for the songs.
Right, like, exactly. I mean, I know my experience with Taylor has been just like that. So many songs about me that she's written. Taylor Swift.
Totally.
It's just
totally. So
it's like, Taylor, get over me. I mean, it's the worst.
Taylor, you need to move on.
Seriously,
move on already.
You need to calm down, Taylor.
Yeah, we're definitely not friends.
No. So okay, well then I guess the question of him hearing it, his reaction. Do you feel like for you it's gratifying knowing that he knows?
Yeah, it must be, because I said something about it. Like I made a point to say something about it.
Right.
What's interesting though is this is the hopeful song, and then the next two songs are not that. They're still sad.
Yeah.
And the last one is very heartbreaking. It is like, it is heavy. It is heavy. So it's been this journey. And I think the songs that I've been writing during COVID, and I've had a couple relationships kind of blossom and die over the last little bit. And it's interesting to watch the songs that come out resemble an interesting place in my life. I think having that progression is kind of cool. I think for me, it's always going to be about heartbreak, because I clearly love getting my heart broken. I love it. That makes me sound so crazy, but like, I just do it. I somehow just get myself in these situations. I fall fast. I can fall in love with a leaf falling off a tree. Like it's the emotional artist in me, I think. I don't know.
Sure. So eating, sleeping, emotions, top 3.
Fitness, emotions. Yeah, that's it. Songwriting, emotions.
So we've talked a little bit about these other songs. Do we have a time in which these songs are going to be coming out? When can we expect a full album, or is it just an EP?
Over the next little bit, I think because I'm an independent artist and I'm doing everything myself, like the management side, the pitching side, everything is all me. I really want to push Do Over as hard as I can. And I want Do Over to get into as many ears as humanly possible. So the timing isn't set for the next song, but I think we could probably expect something before the year's out.
Wow. Okay. All right.
We'll see. Like I said, like this independent artist life is hard, and like I'm managing, a job and a half, and being an artist and writing and life. And I just really want to make sure that I do things right, and that these songs are getting the support and love that they need from me to make sure that they're out in the world. So I don't know. We'll see.
Sure. Well, you're doing some great things with it. I mean, doing it all yourself is not easy, for sure. When, is there a certain milestone that you're going to hit that you're going to say, all right, now I need to hire more people to help me with this?
Yeah. I think if it gets to a point where the songs are really blowing up, and I mean, I think I have to release a couple more songs to really see that progression. Yeah, I don't know. I think I've done some pitching to labels and such, and I've put my name kind of on people's radar as part of kind of the strategy and the plan. But I'm not sure. I want the right people to also reach out, like you don't want to force people into what you're doing and try to convince them to believe you that this is great. I want kind of that to come to me. And I think I'm open, and I'm I'm asking the universe, as cheesy as that sounds, for that. But I don't know about a milestone. I mean, obviously, if you hit 1 million streams anywhere, or all these radio stations start picking up the track, it's like, okay, we need some people here. But I'm not sure what that definite milestone is, honestly.
Sure. Are you getting booked for shows now as well, like socially distanced or through, Facebook streaming or anything like that?
Not really, but I haven't really been focused on that either. I think if that's what I was looking for right now, probably. Like, I've had some offers for some certain things, but coordinating, because I dabble on the keys but don't necessarily eloquently play an instrument, having to book like my guitarist who also has a life and all these other things has been a little bit of a challenge. But yeah, it just hasn't been my focus. I think the focus has been like, get the songs out and get my name out there more so than like, let's book a bunch of virtual shows. And even here in Vancouver, like, we're not really doing anything yet from a live standpoint. Obviously, this is an interesting time, but no, not really.
Sure.
Not really.
I think it's one of those things that I think you're doing in the right order, where you're giving your music a platform. Because right now, this is the only song that you have out streaming, correct?
Yep.
So having that and getting that visibility, so when people do see you, they have something to go to after the show and say, "This is a song I love, and I want to hear this over and over." And
Exactly.
build those streams.
And obviously, there's a lot of value and clout in having a high number of streams. And like, it's unfortunate that you can't share, radio streams as openly and as live as you can the streaming platforms.
Right.
But like, having that ability for someone to go look at you and look at your stream count and be like, oh, they have 50,000 or 20,000 or 1 million or whatever it is, it just gives you that extra bit. And I think that I know how much value that has. So it's trying to drive, to people, like to the stations like you guys who are giving me the opportunity to stream and getting them to tune into your shows. And then on top of that, driving people to their preferred streaming platform. It's a lot of things to consider, and doing it that, like you say, doing it the right way it's hard to figure out what the order of operations is. We don't have bed maths in music, which I'm not a math person, but I'd be really interested in finding something.
I'm not a math person. I'm the art person. Okay. I don't do math.
I'm a creative. I'm not a numbers person.
I have a marketing degree, and that's exactly what I said when I had to take an accounting class. I'm like, man, this is not my business. Like, I get it. I want more money, but
in my job, when they're like, can you pull a report? I'm like, oh, don't we have people to do that?
Right. Let me email Mark. He can get that to you. Yeah, that's great.
Where's the business intelligence team at?
Right. That's so funny. Well, with your, again, I'm jumping back to Do Over for a second, because I thought about this. Where you live is such a beautiful area, a beautiful part of the world. And I feel like your pictures that you did for the cover art are in that area. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so what was the purpose of turning it upside down? Because there's got to be a reason behind it.
Okay, so we shot out, there's a place called Pitt Meadows, and it's out like, it's the outskirts of Vancouver. Very beautiful. Oddly enough, the place that my girlfriend who shot everything, she shoots weddings. And so she takes it's funny because so many people are like, I shot my engagement photos there. I'm like, okay, popular spot. To be honest, there wasn't a reason why it went upside down. My designer, he did it. And then it's funny because my old music manager, she was like, do you know the meaning behind being like an image being upside down? And I was like, no. And she was like, well, in like Irish, Celtic, I guess, folklore or whatever, they would bury people upside down so that you're right side up in the underworld when you go. And I was like, if that's true, I'm super into that. Like, I'm here for it. I'm Irish. I'm here for it. But no, there was really no reason. And I don't remember Bren's my graphic designer. He did it. And I think at first I was like, weird, but it just, the way that it all felt, I was like, this is different. I'm into this. Like, I'm like, I love creativity. I love being creative. I love getting into the nitty gritty of this stuff. And people are always right side up. So why not do something different? And I was like, I'm in. And the people that I had kind of like tested it with, they were like, oh my gosh, that is cool. And I'm like, okay, rad. Like, we're going to move forward with that.
It feels very indie, like, is what it is. It feels very AAA-esque.
Yeah. And what's funny is I hear a lot of people talk to me about how like they can hear me doing, you know, this like traditional country thing, but then also more like almost like kind of what Taylor's done in the recent album, like something that's a bit more folky, and indie vibe. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm like, at least like I'm not pigeonholing myself to like one specific thing, because I'm not that either. Like I'm wearing, like I have so many hats. Like I'm wearing hats one time, and then I'm wearing gold chains and like bomber jackets that have horses on them. Like I'm not, you know, I'm not one particular thing. So I think that was also kind of part of it. It's like, let's flip this on its head and kind of show the difference here.
I thought for sure you were going to say I wear many different hats. I thought that was exactly where you're going with it. See what you're doing.
I missed that moment.
It's all right.
Just like
that. I love it. Well, okay. So the last question I'm going to ask you, because obviously a lot of great stuff from the music standpoint and a lot of great stuff from the artist standpoint, but like any good interviewer, I went through some of your Instagram posts and I found one that really jumped out at me, and I'm like, that is such a cool like way of thinking.
Oh God, what did I do?
The question is, it's super simple, I promise you. All right. So you made a comment about thinking that you were going to be or that you were a cartoon character in a past life.
Oh.
And I think that's awesome. So, one, how did that pop in?
Like
what? Yeah. So that popped in your head. But what is a cartoon then? If that was the case, what was the cartoon that you'd be in?
Good grief.
Charlie Brown. Good. Okay.
No. Oh boy. That's so interesting. It's funny because I never really thought about it, but for some reason, what's that cartoon character with Bugs Bunny and he's like the cowboy?
Oh,
kind of fat and
Yosemite
stumpy.
Sam.
Yeah, him.
Yeah.
And then, but then also for some reason, Squidward from SpongeBob SquarePants keeps coming up.
Sure.
So maybe that. I don't know. I just like, I make the weirdest faces. Like people are like, you're so photogenic. I'm like, no, I'm not. Like I make the craziest faces all the time. And I'm always kind of like doing these weird voices. I feel like I should be a voice, like a cartoon voiceover person sometimes. But yeah, there's things that I do. And like that picture was a prime example. I was like, I swear to goodness, I must be a cartoon character in a past life because I do some weird stuff.
That's fun. That's how you know, people take like way too seriously. I'll admit that sometimes I take it seriously, but I also like being just kind of crazy and just fun and let your hair down kind of style, right?
Totally. And I think that I've been that a lot. Like I've been like where I'm like, I need to look a certain way. I need to speak a certain way. My tone of voice has to be like, I come from a marketing background. So consistency and having someone understand what they can expect is important. But then I started to be like, you know what? I'm a hot mess. I'm an emotional hot mess. I love getting my heart broken. Why can't I just be that? Like, why can't I just be this goofy, weird person that I am? Like, if you're in a room with some of my best friends, people are like, how does this stuff come out of you? You're a nightmare. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's always a show. And I'm like, I just want to be that. And so I kind of stopped caring. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do these stupid TikTok videos and I'm going to like say weird things like I'm a cartoon character. And I'm just going to talk about my feelings and not care and swear like a sailor.
Life's too short not to.
Life's too short, man.
That's awesome. All right. Well, Parker, we appreciate you taking some time to chat with us here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Honestly, it means so much. And like I said earlier, having any station take notice of us independent artists who don't have the platform that others do. We're so grateful for people like you who do take the time to give us this platform and speak with us and share our music. So thank you. And to everyone who listens to the station.
You are more than welcome. We love celebrating good music. That is what it's all about. You bet. So check her out at Parker Graye on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, pretty much everywhere. So
everywhere. Check it out. Come find me. Come at me.
And again, Parker Graye's new song, Do Over.